Have you ever thought, well, at my age, this probably doesn't matter anymore? Or maybe you've wondered quietly without ever saying it out loud. Is this still normal? Is it even safe? Let me ask you something that might surprise you. Could something as simple and natural as masturbation actually be silently harming your health after 60? Now, I know this is a topic we don't hear much about, especially when it comes to older men. But that silence can lead to confusion, bad habits, and even health issues that nobody warns you about. And here's the truth. I've spent over 30 years working with senior men across the country, and I can tell you this conversation matters, more than you probably think. In today's video, we're going to talk openly, respectfully, and honestly about 7 common masturbation mistakes that older men often make, sometimes without even realizing it. Mistakes that can affect your prostate, your sleep, your heart, even your emotional well-being. This isn't about embarrassment or judgment. It's about empowering you with real science-backed advice that helps you stay healthy, confident, and comfortable in your body, no matter your age. And if that sounds like something you wish someone had told you sooner, you're in the right place. Here at Senior Health Secrets, we talk about the things others avoid because your health deserves honesty. If you find this helpful, today feel free to subscribe. Let's take better care of you together. Let's be honest, when most men hit their 60s or 70s, very few people are talking to them about things like intimacy or self-pleasure. It's as if somehow that part of your life is supposed to just vanish. But it doesn't. Not really. And more importantly, it shouldn't. Because your sexual health is still part of your overall health. It's not separate. It's connected to your prostate, your heart, your sleep, your mood, even how confident you feel in your own skin. I'm Dr. John. And for over 3 decades, I've had the privilege of helping thousands of men across the United States navigate aging with strength, dignity, and clarity. From the exam room to the seminar stage, one thing I've learned is this: too many older men are struggling silently, either because they're too embarrassed to ask, or because no one's ever given them the straight, respectful truth about what's happening in their bodies. That ends today. This video is about more than just techniques or tips. It's about the unseen ways certain habits, even ones you've had for years, might quietly be harming your health. I'm going to walk you through the 7 most common masturbation mistakes I see older men make after 60 and show you what to do instead. No shame, no judgment, just honest, clear, and science-backed guidance to help you stay safe, satisfied, and well. And let me be clear, we're not talking about giving up pleasure or ignoring desire. We're talking about understanding your body better so you can take care of it and enjoy it with confidence. Stick with me until the end of this video because even just one of these changes could make a big difference in your quality of life. And if this topic feels important to you, or if it's something you've been wondering about but didn't know who to ask, you're not alone. I invite you to subscribe here to Senior Health Secrets, where we handle the topics others ignore always with respect and honesty. Now, let's dive into the first silent mistake, and it has everything to do with your prostate. Let's start with the one that catches most older men off guard because for years, it didn't seem like a problem at all. As we age, the prostate, that small but powerful gland just below the bladder, tends to enlarge. That's natural. It's called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH. But here's where it gets tricky. When you continue masturbating the same way you always have, with the same frequency and intensity, you might be putting silent pressure on that already sensitive area. I've seen it countless times in my office. A gentleman comes in complaining of interrupted urine flow, pelvic discomfort, or waking up multiple times a night to pee. He's often frustrated, even scared, and one of the first questions I ask gently is whether he's noticed any pattern between those symptoms and how often he's ejaculating. Now, let's be clear, I'm not saying masturbation is dangerous. In fact, in moderation, it can be great for prostate health. It helps flush out old fluids, keeps circulation moving, and may even reduce the risk of prostate cancer. But here's the catch. Too much pressure too often or with too much force can irritate the prostate, especially if it's already a little enlarged. I once had a patient in his late 60s, a retired firefighter. He was strong, sharp, and proud of staying active in every sense of the word, but he started experiencing this dull ache in his lower abdomen. After a thorough checkup, we realized his self-pleasure routine, which hadn't changed since his 40s, was the likely culprit. He wasn't doing anything wrong per se, just too often and too aggressively for his body's current state. We adjusted his routine, slower buildups, more time between sessions, gentler pressure, and the results were almost immediate. His discomfort faded. his sleep improved. And he didn't feel like he was giving anything up, he felt more in control. So here's what I recommend. If you're over 60, take a moment to reflect on how often you're ejaculating. Is it daily? Multiple times per day? Every few days, everyone's body is different, but for most older men, 2 to 3 times per week is a healthy rhythm, giving the prostate a chance to rest between sessions. And pay attention to how you feel afterward. If you notice soreness, burning during urination, or disrupted sleep, that might be your body telling you it needs a bit more care. Also, position matters. Sitting for long periods, say during long viewing sessions, can increase pelvic tension. Try standing up and walking afterward, or even stretching gently. Small changes go a long way. And remember, this isn't about restriction, it's about adjustment. Your body has changed. Your needs have changed, and that's okay. Coming up next, we'll talk about something many men don't even realize they're doing wrong, using the same routine they've used for decades, even though their body no longer responds the same way. It's a surprisingly common mistake, and we'll explore how to adapt and thrive right after this. Let me ask you a simple question. Are you still doing it the same way you did 20, 30, maybe even 40 years ago? If your answer is yes, you're not alone. In fact, most men fall into that exact pattern, not out of stubbornness, but simply out of habit. You find something that works, you stick with it, and for a while it feels fine, familiar, comforting, maybe even necessary. But as your body changes, so do your needs, and ignoring that can lead to frustration, reduced sensation, and even anxiety about performance. Here's the truth. What worked at 35 or 45 may not work as well at 65 or 75, and that's not a failure, that's biology. I once had a patient named Walter, 72 years old, who told me he'd stopped feeling much of anything down there. He was worried something was wrong. He thought he might have lost his ability to enjoy pleasure altogether. But after talking with him for a while, I realized his routine hadn't changed in nearly 4 decades. Same rhythm, same speed, same pressure, same setting. So I asked him, "Do you think your body now feels the same as it did back then?" He laughed. "Of course not," he said, and that's when the light bulb went off. Here's the science behind it. As testosterone naturally declines with age and blood flow to the genitals reduces slightly, the sensitivity of nerve endings can decrease. You might require more time to build arousal. You might need a different kind of touch, a slower pace, or even some help from lubricants to reduce friction and enhance sensation. And guess what? That's not less than. It's simply different. Trying to force your body to behave like it did decades ago can create performance anxiety even if you're alone, and that anxiety creates tension, which further blocks sensation. It becomes a loop. But with some patience and openness to change, you can not only regain pleasure, you can make it better. So here's my advice. Start fresh. Think of it like learning a new skill. Slow down, explore. Let yourself discover what now feels good instead of chasing what used to feel good. Use warm, natural lubricants if dryness is an issue. Try new positions that reduce strain on the lower back or hips. Many older men experience discomfort without realizing it's affecting their experience. You might also consider incorporating breathing or mindfulness techniques. I know that may sound a little out there for some folks, but even just pausing and breathing more deeply during the process can help bring awareness back to your body and allow for a richer experience. The takeaway here is simple. Give yourself permission to evolve. What worked in the past was right for that body. Today you're in a different phase of life, and that's nothing to grieve. It's something to explore. Now let's move into mistake number 3 that can have real consequences, not just for your sexual health, but for your heart health and sleep as well. It's something many seniors overlook, and it has to do with when you choose to masturbate. We'll dive into that next. Now here's one that surprises a lot of men, especially because it seems counterintuitive at first. You might think, what better way to wind down before bed than a little personal time? And for some men, that's absolutely true. Masturbation can release endorphins, relax the body, and ease you into sleep. But for others, especially men over 60, the timing of sexual activity can actually interfere with sleep, or worse, put a strain on the heart and nervous system without you realizing it. Let me explain. As we age, our body becomes more sensitive to how we regulate energy. Ejaculation, whether through sex or masturbation, uses a surprising amount of physical and hormonal resources. It triggers a cascade of neurochemical responses. Dopamine, oxytocin, prolactin, and even cortisol shift after orgasm. For younger men, the body bounces back quickly. But for seniors, especially those with heart conditions, high blood pressure, or sleep disorders, the recovery is slower. I had a patient named Leonard, age 68, who came in complaining of terrible insomnia. He'd tried melatonin-reduced his caffeine-cut screen time before bed, the works, but nothing seemed to help. We talked for a while, and finally he casually mentioned his nightly routine. He was using masturbation to fall asleep every single night, and instead of making him sleepy, it was making him restless. His heart would race, his thoughts would swirl, he'd toss and turn until 3 a.m. Why? Because for Leonard, and many like him, ejaculation triggered just enough sympathetic nervous system activity, that's your body's fight or flight mode, to disturb his natural wind-down process. So what can you do about it? First, notice how you feel after. If you feel more alert, more anxious, or your heart beats a little harder, consider changing the timing. Try moving that activity to earlier in the evening, or even during the day, when your energy is higher and recovery is easier. Second, think about your environment. Are you in bed in the dark, trying to squeeze it in before sleep? That can create pressure, both mental and physical, and turn a relaxing experience into something that actually stimulates the brain. And third, if sleep is a concern in general, it might be worth experimenting with other nighttime routines instead. Gentle stretching, a warm shower, or even calming music can set the stage for rest without taxing the body. I'm not saying you should stop, not at all. I'm simply saying, listen to what your body is telling you. Sleep is foundational to every aspect of senior health, from memory to heart function to mood. If something you're doing regularly is disrupting, then it's worth taking a closer look. Now, speaking of the nervous system, let's talk about something most men overlook completely. And it has everything to do with stress guilt and how your mindset around masturbation may be quietly sabotaging your health in ways you'd never expect. Let me be honest with you, this is the one most men never talk about. Not with their doctor, not with their spouse, and often not even with themselves. And yet it's one of the most common mistakes I see among older men when it comes to masturbation, carrying around years, sometimes decades of guilt or shame about something that is perfectly natural. You see, many of us grew up in a time when this topic was considered taboo. Maybe you were raised in a religious household where self-pleasure was called a sin, or maybe society just painted it as something shameful or dirty. Even today, those early messages can stick with us, buried deep in our subconscious. Now, fast forward to your 60s or 70s. You've lived a full life. You've raised a family. You've worked hard, paid your dues, been a good man. And yet that old inner voice still whispers, you shouldn't be doing this. Let me tell you something important, and I want you to really hear this. There is nothing wrong, immoral, or unhealthy about masturbation, especially at your age. In fact, the opposite is true. Masturbation in later life supports prostate health. It helps regulate testosterone. It boosts your mood, improves blood flow, and can even reduce the risk of certain cancers when done in moderation. It's your body's natural way of maintaining function, and there's absolutely no reason to feel ashamed. But guilt has a funny way of interfering, not just emotionally, but physically too. When you carry negative feelings into the experience, your body reacts. The mind gets tense, muscles tighten, blood flow decreases. And suddenly, what could have been a soothing, healing experience turns into one that causes anxiety, frustration, or a sense of disconnect. I had a patient named Clyde, 75 years old. He'd lost his wife 5 years earlier and had been hesitant to even think about intimacy since then, even with himself. When we finally got around to discussing his overall health, he sheepishly admitted he still felt wrong doing it alone, like he was betraying her memory, like he was too old for that kind of thing. I asked him, if your wife could talk to you now, would she want you to feel alone, ashamed, or disconnected from your body? He paused for a long time, then nodded and said, no, she'd want me to be at peace. We talked about how self-pleasure could actually be a form of healing, a way to reconnect with your body, affirm that you're still alive, still worthy of joy, still human. And with time, he began to let go of the shame. It didn't happen overnight, but gradually, he noticed his anxiety fading. His sleep improved. Even his blood pressure came down, because that mental weight, that unnecessary burden, had finally been lifted. If you've been carrying guilt around this part of your life, I invite you to give yourself grace. You're not breaking any rules. You're not doing anything unnatural. You are honoring a very human need for connection, even if it's just with yourself. And here's one last tip. Try approaching the experience, not with a goal, but with curiosity. What feels good? What helps you feel more relaxed? What helps you feel alive? That shift in mindset from guilt to curiosity can change everything. Now, up next is a mistake that most men don't even realize they're making, and it has to do with your tools, specifically what you're using with your hands. Some of the things you might think are helping could actually be harming your skin, your nerves, or even your prostate over time. This one's a bit more physical, but just as important, and unfortunately, it's something I see way too often in my practice. As men age, the tissues in the penis become more delicate. Blood vessels aren't quite as elastic. Nerve endings become a bit less sensitive, and the skin itself can become thinner or more prone to irritation. That's all perfectly natural. But here's the problem. Many older men continue to masturbate using the same techniques they used when they were 25, without realizing their body has changed. Let me be direct. What might have felt fine or even pleasurable when you were younger may now be causing microtrauma. Little injuries to the skin, minor tears, irritated nerves, inflammation, all things you may not notice right away, but over time, they can affect your sensitivity, your performance, and even your ability to maintain a healthy erection. I had a gentleman in his early 70s, we'll call him Harold, who came to me complaining of increasing numbness and occasional tingling in his groin. He was worried about diabetes or even nerve damage. We ran the tests and everything came back normal. But in our conversation, I asked him a simple question. Tell me about how you're masturbating. At first, he looked surprised, but then he admitted, Doc, I'm still doing it the same way I've done it since I was a teenager. Quick, rough, no lotion, just get it done. There it was. Harold was unknowingly causing repeated microdamage to his own body. And over time, that damage added up inflammation around the nerve endings, mild swelling in the tissue, and a drop in sensitivity. Once we adjusted his techniques slowing down, using lubrication, varying pressure, his symptoms began to improve. Not overnight, but steadily. So here's the guidance I give every man over 60. First, start using a high-quality water-based lubricant. Not lotion, not soap, and definitely not just dry. As we get older, natural lubrication decreases and dry stimulation can cause small tears in the skin. That leads to irritation, infection risk, and even a dulling of pleasure. Second, vary your technique. If you've been doing the same motion for decades, your body becomes less responsive to it. Think of it like working out. If you only ever do one exercise, the muscle adapts. The same thing happens with sexual stimulation. Try changing your grip, your rhythm, your hand position. Don't rush. Think of it less like a sprint and more like a walk through the garden. Third, pay attention to aftercare. If you notice redness, dryness, or any discomfort afterward, don't ignore it. That's your body's way of saying, hey, ease up. Treat it like any other part of your body that deserves respect and gentle care. And for those who may be using tools like vibrator sleeves or other devices, make sure they're designed for senior sensitivity. Some modern devices can be too intense, even damaging if used the wrong way. Always choose trusted brands, read instructions carefully, and if something feels off, stop and reassess. Remember, this isn't about being overly cautious. It's about preserving your long-term health and enjoyment. Your body deserves that. Now, next up is a mistake that goes beyond the physical and right into your health habits. Many men don't realize that the frequency of masturbation matters not just in terms of pleasure, but in relation to prostate health, urinary function, and even hormone balance. Here's a question I hear a lot from men over 60. Dr. John, how often should I be masturbating? Some ask with curiosity, others with worry, as if there's some magic number, and if they're off by a few days, they've done something wrong. The truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but there is science behind how frequency impacts your health as you age. Let's break it down simply. Masturbation isn't just about pleasure. It plays a real role in maintaining prostate health, supporting testosterone balance, and even helping your body regulate urinary function. But if it's done too rarely or too frequently, it can throw off that balance. Too infrequent, and you might experience stagnation of fluids in the prostate. This can lead to discomfort, inflammation, or in some cases, increased risk of prostate conditions like benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. In fact, some studies have shown that moderate consistent ejaculation may be associated with a lower risk of prostate cancer over time. Think of it like a self-cleaning process for the male reproductive system. But on the flip side, masturbating too often, especially in a compulsive or rushed way, can put stress on your hormonal system. It can lead to decreased testosterone over time, fatigue, irritability, and ironically, lower libido. especially if you find yourself doing it out of boredom, stress, or habit rather than genuine desire. So, what's the right balance? In general, for most healthy men over 60, masturbating anywhere from 2 to 4 times per week tends to support optimal hormonal health and prostate function. But here's the key, it's not just about the number, it's about the intention and quality of the experience. Let me give you a real-world example. I once had a patient, Alan, who was 68. Very active guy, sharp as a tack, but he was worried about his energy levels dropping. He thought maybe it was diet or sleep, which were both good. But when we got into his daily habits, he told me he'd developed a pattern of masturbating once or twice a day, mostly out of routine, not real desire. Now, there's nothing wrong with high libido at any age. But when we looked at his hormone levels, we saw a dip in free testosterone and some elevated cortisol, the stress hormone. When we adjusted his routine, encouraged him to slow down, reduce frequency to just 3 times per week, and focus on quality over quantity, his mood improved, his energy came back, and his overall satisfaction went up, not down. So if you're asking yourself, am I doing this too much or not enough? Here's what I'd say. Start by listening to your body. Are you feeling refreshed and relaxed afterward? Or tired, empty, maybe even guilty? Are you using it to support your well-being or to escape from stress or boredom? Is it helping your sleep, your mood, your comfort, or interfering with your energy and motivation? Your body will usually tell you what's right if you're willing to listen. And remember, frequency isn't about comparing yourself to others. It's about what helps you feel your best, physically, emotionally, and hormonally. When in doubt, speak to your doctor. A basic hormone panel can go a long way in helping you understand what your body needs. Up next, we're going to talk about a mistake that a lot of men never consider, one that goes beyond technique, mindset, or even frequency. It's about how isolation and lack of intimacy, emotional or physical, can actually magnify the downsides of masturbation and prevent you from thriving in your golden years. This final mistake isn't one you'll hear about in most doctors' offices, but it may be the most quietly damaging of them all. You see, for many older men, especially those who are widowed, divorced, or living alone, masturbation can gradually shift from being a healthy, pleasurable part of life into something that fills a void, not just physical, but emotional. Now, let me be clear, there is absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying solo intimacy. In fact, it's a vital form of self-care, especially when practiced with awareness and balance. But the trouble begins when it becomes a replacement for deeper forms of connection, whether that's intimacy with a partner, emotional closeness with friends or family, or even your own sense of identity. Let me tell you a quick story. A man named George, 74 years old, a retired firefighter, came to see me a few years ago. He'd lost his wife 6 years earlier. His kids had moved out of state, and over time he found himself withdrawing more and more from the world. He told me he didn't have the same interest in meeting people, didn't feel like going to his church group, and had stopped going out with his old friends. Instead, he stayed home, watched TV, and increasingly relied on masturbation to ease his loneliness. Now, George wasn't doing anything wrong per se, but he was using it to numb something, not to fulfill something. And he told me that afterward, instead of feeling relaxed or joyful, he often felt even more alone. This is something I see far more than I wish I did. Because when masturbation becomes a substitute for connection, it slowly begins to reinforce the very isolation it's trying to soothe. Instead of feeling alive, it can start to feel mechanical. Instead of feeling better, it can leave you feeling hollow. And instead of improving your well-being, it can quietly chip away at your motivation to reach out to bond, to experience the beautiful and sometimes challenging parts of human connection. So what can you do? If this resonates with you in any way, I encourage you to try something gently different. Make a conscious effort to engage in at least one social interaction every day. That could be a phone call with a friend, chatting with a neighbor, joining a hobby group, or even volunteering somewhere that needs your wisdom and heart. If you've lost intimacy in your life, emotional, physical, or both, know that it's never too late to rediscover it. There are dating communities, companionship circles, and counseling options, specifically for seniors looking to reconnect. And no, you don't have to start dating if that's not right for you. Sometimes just opening up to a close friend or joining a support group can bring tremendous healing. Consider combining healthy solo intimacy with meaningful rituals. Instead of turning to it when you feel down or lonely, reserve it for when you feel peaceful, grateful, or connected. Light a candle. Play music that brings you joy. Make it a moment of care, not a habit of coping. One of the deepest truths I've learned in my 30-plus years of working with seniors is this: the body may change, but the human need for connection, for touch, for affection, for being seen, never goes away. Masturbation, when practiced with intention, can absolutely be part of that, but it should never replace the richness of a life filled with connection, purpose, and love. So if you're feeling isolated, I invite you to take just one small step today. Reach out to someone, send a message, join a group, or even leave a comment below. You never know how much impact one act of connection can have. And with that, let's wrap things up. Let me give you a quick summary of what we've covered and share a few closing thoughts that I hope will stay with you. To wrap things up, remember this: masturbation after 60 can be a healthy, enjoyable part of your life, but only when done with awareness, care, and balance. Avoid the common mistakes we discussed today. Don't ignore your changing body's needs. Protect yourself from injury, pay attention to frequency, and never let it replace meaningful connection. Your well-being is about nurturing both your body and your heart. If you found these insights helpful, please comment one below and share this video with a friend or loved one who might benefit. Here on Senior Health Secrets, we're all about empowering you to live your best, healthiest life at every age. Thanks for watching, and remember, it's never too late to discover new ways to care for yourself. Stay healthy and hopeful, my friends.